Hello, it's Dr. Ominde, and I'm going to discuss on the anatomy of testis, scrotum, the spermatic cord. Testis, scrotum, and spermatic cord. So, begin by discussing scrotum. So, the scrotum is a medial pendant pouch of loose skin, superficial fascia. It's just a undulant pouch located medially, and is composed of skin and superficial fascia. So you have right and left scrotal pouches, and at the center, the two of them unite a raphe, which is a superficial division between the right and left compartments. So the left scrotum is usually lower than the right scrotum. Then we have dartos muscle. So from skin you get to fascia, and this dartos muscle is within the fascia. When we're discussing the anterior abdominal wall structures, the campus, which is the fatty part of the superficial fascia of the abdominal wall, extended in scrotum and existed as dartos muscle. So this dartos muscle is just small muscles that are in the scrotum and that respond to temperature. So they're temperature sensitive. When it's hot, the dartos muscle relaxes, and cold, the dartos muscle contracts. Okay, this is important because when it's cold, the dartos contracts and brings scrotum towards the body, so that and when hot, it relaxes. So the scrotum is lowered away from the body. That way, you're able to maintain the correct temperatures to ensure that the sperms are at a good temperature of spermatogenesis. So the dartos muscle also has right and left compartments of dartos muscle on the right scrotum and on the left scrotum. Each of the right and left scrotum contains a testis, epididymis, and tunica vaginalis that is covering testis. So testis, epididymis, and tunica vaginalis. So the testis is suspended in the scrotum by the spermatic cord. The testis is suspended in the scrotum by the spermatic cord, which is 4 to 5 centimeters long. Testis weighs 10.5 to 14 grams. It's usually oval shape. So this is the testis here. It's oval in shape. It's in the scrotum, so that's the scrotum, the testis. And from one end of the testis, you have the epididymis, which has a head, body, and from the epididymis, your ductus vas deferens emerging from it. Then through the superficial inguinal ring to the deep into the inguinal canal, the deep ring, it enters into the abdomen, passes posterior to the ureter, posterior to the bladder, and the vas deferens is joined with the semicircle, and together they open in the prostatic urethra through the ejaculatory duct. Okay, so the testis develop embryonically in the abdominal cavity, and just before the testis descend from the abdominal cavity into the scrotum through the inguinal canal. So they descend, they collect the various peritoneal rings, and that's what we call the processus vaginalis, the invagination of the peritoneum through the inguinal canal into the scrotum. So the epididymis is a highly coiled tube. It's a highly coiled tube. It is 15 to 16 feet long, and it's the posterior superior margin of the testis. The epididymis at the posterior superior margin of the testis is really elongated and flattened. So this epididymis is usually covered by tunica vaginalis. And the tunica vaginalis is a visceral layer. So it partially covers epididymis, and epididymis is divided into three parts. There's a head, body, and a tail. And the tail is contained in the vas deferens or ductus deferens. The head receives the errant ductus. Remember, from the test, the sperms prurate testis to the efferent ductules before they enter the epididymis. So this is the structure of the testis. It has two virginia on the outer portion, and then it will send septa into the gland, dividing the gland into incomplete lobules. Each lobule contains seminiferous tubules. You can see the seminiferous, which contain cells of the spermatogenic series, sperm different stages of maturation. We also have Sertoli cells in the seminiferous tubules, and then connective tissue around the seminiferous tubules contains interstitial cells of Leydig. Now, sperms that have been formed will enter into the straight tubules. Then from the straight tubules, the rated testis. Then from rated testis into the efferent ducts before the sperms now enter the epididymis. So the head, the body, and the tail of epididymis, then through the efferents. So we have the appendages in the scrotum. So we have what you call the appendix of the testis. The appendix of the testis actually lies below the head of the epididymis, and it's a remnant of Mullerian duct. Remember, the Mullerian duct is giving rise to female reproductive tract structures like the uterine tubes and the uterus. But in the presence of SY gene and Mullerian inhibiting hormone, the Mullerian duct does not develop in males because of the presence of the XY sex chromosome. So the Mullerian duct has to degenerate. So the remnants remain as the appendix of the testis beneath the epididymis, and this may be referred to as hydatid Morgagni. So this is the location appendix of the testis. That's it. So we also have apex of the epididymis, and this is usually attached to the head of the epididymis, and it's actually detached modified efferent duct. That's what forms appendix of the epididymis. So this appendix of the epididymis is a remnant of mesonephric duct. So where you had primitive epididymis vas deferens, remnant of the mesonephric duct from the appendix of the epididymis. So again, this is appendix of the epididymis, and this is the appendix of the testis. This is the appendix of the epididymis. This is the appendix of the testis. So then we have the superficial inguinal rings, which we said are modifications of the external oblique abdominis muscle. So they are triangular openings on the abdominal muscle, and they are usually superolateral to the tubercle. We said 1 centimeter above the pubicle. And these superficial inguinal rings actually have the contents of the spermatic cord. So this is the inguinal canal. This is the superficial inguinal ring. Okay, and this is the deep inguinal ring. So basically, scrotum now, you can discuss it. It has two layers: the superficial fascia, which is skin and ductus muscle, and then coreless fascia. This fascia has membranous layer, so it's continuous membranous layer of the anterior wall, and this coreless is continuous over the penis and the scrotum. So we have the following coverings in the scrotum. So we've discussed the skin and that before you go to coreless fascia, and after that you have the external spermatic fascia. This external spermatic fascia is actually a continuation from the external oblique abdominis muscle. External spermatic fascia is from external oblique, not external oblique. It's from external oblique abdominis muscle only. Then the cremasteric fascia is from the internal oblique abdominis muscle, while the internal spermatic fascia is fascia transversalis. So external spermatic fascia is external oblique, cremasteric fascia is from internal oblique muscle, while internal spermatic fascia is from fascia transversalis. So this is the scrotum, from skin to superficial, which is ductus, before to coreless fascia, which is membranous, and then external spermatic from external oblique abdomen, cremasteric fascia, internal oblique abdominis, internal spermatic fascia from fascia transversalis, before you get to the parietal peritoneum that extends scrotum as tunica vaginalis, and the visceral layer of tunica vaginalis, before you to tunica albuginea. So the layers of peritoneum allow mobility. So you have tunica vaginalis that has a parietal and visceral layer. So the parietal will line the scrotal ducts, while the visceral layer actually lie on the testis epididymis covering. So the testis has the visceral layer of the tunica vaginalis covering it before you get to the capsule of the testis, which is called tunica albuginea. And this capsule and septa will divide it into various lobes, and each lobule contains seminiferous tubules with sperm different stages of maturation as well as cells. The interstitial or connective tissue portions contain interstitial cells of that produce testosterone. Then we have what mediastinum testis, which is the hilum of the testis. This is where you find efferent ductules rated testis. So this phylum of the testis, you have rete testis and efferent ductule. So that's the antennum testis. This is tunica albuginea, which capsule of the testis sending inceptor to divide it into lobules. Each lobule has seminiferous tubules. Then we get spermatic cord, which we discussed when we were discussing inguinal movement. So spermatic cord has coverings from abdominal wall, external spermatic fascia, continuation of external oblique abdominis, the cremasteric fascia, which is continuation of internal oblique abdominis, and internal spermatic fascia, which is continuation of fascia transversalis. Then the spermatic cord, we said it has 3 arteries, 3 nerves, and 3 other structures. So the 3 arteries we discussed, we said we have the artery to vas deferens, testicular artery, and cremasteric artery. Artery to deferens, cremasteric, and testicular artery. Then the 3 nerves are the sympathetic nerve fibers, ilioinguinal nerve, okay, and the autonomic nerve, the sympathetic and parasympathetic. The other 3 structures in the spermatic cord include deferens, the pampinea venous plexus, and lymphatic vessels. The vas deferens, pampinea venous plexus, and lymphatic vessels. So those are the contents of the spermatic. In some instances, the vaginal ligament, which is obliterated diverticum processus vaginis. So these are the contents of the spermatic cord. So 3 coverings, okay, external spermatic fascia from external oblique, masteric muscle from oblique abdominis, and internal spermatic from fascia transversalis. Then you have 3 arteries, artery to vas, testicular artery, and cremasteric artery. You have nerves, autonomic nerves, pampiniform plexus, lymphatics. So you can appreciate skin, ductus muscle here. So from the testis, your epididymis, head, tail, before you get to the vas deferens. So vas deferens is a constituent of the spermatic cord, which will superficial ring through the inguinal canal to the deep ring. Then posteriorly, the vas deferens will by seminal vesicle form ejaculatory duct. So all the ejaculate will now be released through the prostatic urethra, membranous urethral urethra, and out of the male reproductive tract. So the arteries, the spermatic cord, you have testicular artery, which is from the renal aorta. It's given off inferior to the renal artery. This passes deep to the peritoneum. So the testicular artery actually travels through the canal to reach the test, and testicular migration follows the path of the testicular artery. Then we have cremasteric artery, which is a branch of testicular artery. Cremasteric is a branch of testicular artery and supplies the ureter and cremasteric muscle. Then there is perineal artery, which is a branch of pudendal artery that gives rise to postscrotal artery. It supplies the perineum external genitalia. We also have suprachial artery, pampiniform venous plexuses. They're also spermatic cord. So these ones just form a network around spermatic cord. The testicular vein, you can see it's formed by the convergence of the pampiniform plexus, and it enters the inferior vena cava on the right. But the left testicular vein has to the left renal vein, which will now reach to the inferior vena cava. So on the left testicular vein joined renal vein before it gets inferior vena cava, but on the right testicular vein will directly into the inferior vena cava. And you also have lymphs from the testis that will follow the spermatic cord. So this end in the lumbar nodes, and from the scrotum, lymphatics end into superficial inguinal. So the scrotum, penis, and prepuce drain into superficial inguinal nodes. While testes and spermatic cord drain into external iliac nodes, then to the lumbar lymph nodes. Inguinal nerve is L. It passes through the inguinal canal through the superficial ring. It supplies the skin of the scrotum and the medial thigh. Genitofemoral is the genital branch of genitofemoral nerve that supplies cremasteric muscle. So then there's a femoral of genitofemoral nerve that supplies the medial portion of the thigh. So genitofemoral nerve has 2 just genital branch supplying cremasteric muscle and femoral branch supplying the medial portion of the thigh. So we have what you call cremasteric reflex. Cremasteric reflex is when you scratch the medial aspect of the thigh. What happens? The femoral branch of genitofemoral nerve will carry that information, sensory information, then it will communicate with the genital branch of genitofemoral, causing cremasteric muscle to contract, leading the scrotum elevating. So that's what your cremasteric reflex, where femoral branch of genitofemoral is activated when you touch the medial portion of the thigh. Then it communicates with the genital branch to cause cremasteric muscle to contract.